Welcome to the Insightful Player podcast. My name is Chrissy Carew. I'm the host and founder of Insightful Player and the author of Insightful Player, Football Pros Lead a Bold Movement of Hope. I partner with NFL players to transform our world to be inclusive, kinder, and more loving. In each episode, I interviewed NFL players and NFL vets who overcame tremendous obstacles to reach their dream of playing in the NFL. And I'm also a transformational coach. I empower my clients to embrace their dreams, to transform their world and the world around them. And we want you to believe in your dreams and encourage you to commit to them now. Humanity is in trouble. We need you. We all need to do this. We need to embrace our dreams and share them with others so we can have an immediate positive impact on making our world a much kinder place. We invite you to become an important part of our bold movement of hope. Watch this podcast, share it with others, and let us know what you want to see and hear to support you in becoming an insightful player in your life. Thank you. Welcome to the Insightful Player podcast. We are really excited. We have a wonderful guest today. His name is Steve Hoyem, and he is a former Buffalo Bills player. And he's overcome a lot of obstacles, and he's gained so much wisdom from everything that he's been through. And he's a real inspiration to me and many others. And with the world the way it is right now, a lot of people are going through so many hard times, and humanity's at a really tough spot right now with so much violence and anger out there. So this is why we're doing this podcast. We want to shower you with inspiring stories of hope and encourage you to also pour more love into the world. So I'm so excited to have Steve with us today, and I'm going to let him tell you his amazing story. So welcome, Steve.
Thank you, Chrissy. It's such an honor to be here today. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh gosh, and it's so special to really have you. I've been a big fan for a long time. So we have a lot to talk about, and I thought maybe we could start off a little bit about your story and all the obstacles you overcame starting in high school when you were shy and felt really uncomfortable at parties. Can you share that story with us, Steve?
Sure. I think I'm going to take a wild guess here and say that's a pretty common experience for a lot of kids in high school. I felt like I was the exception somehow, that whatever it was that I had was different than what everyone else was going through. I was involved with sports, and so I had groups of friends that were involved in athletics and friends on the academic side. I was involved in like National Honor Society and things like that. And some of these worlds didn't, especially in high school, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of overlap. So you're in, I found myself in different groups all the time, but just navigating that was uncomfortable for me. I didn't always feel like I fit in, in football, I might've been the tallest, but I didn't feel comfortable because maybe I wasn't the fastest, or I might've been the strongest, but I maybe couldn't do something else that wasn't what other people might have been able to do. So it was true for me there. That was really where I identified myself and for a good chunk of my life as a football player. But the struggles that I had in that arena definitely were common with the insecurities that I had in other places too.
Yeah, you had quite the story, and I don't even know if I mentioned it in the introduction. Steve played at Stanford, and he also played with the Buffalo Bills. And you're right, and that happens with all of us, right? We focus on what we don't have versus what we have going for us, and especially in those teenage years, where gosh, that's so tough, and peer pressure is through the roof, isn't it?
Right.
So. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And you had picked up a habit back then that a lot of people can probably relate to you. Do you want to share that about how you started the drinking?
Sure. Well, I think, there's a lot of factors that enter into the equation of addiction and substance abuse. And uh, I think genetically there was a predisposition for me. That, some family, uh, when it came to alcohol, that was my drug of choice, early on. And I always had this idea that, that was kind of the secret to being seen as an adult in this world, or being something that fit in, on the family social side maybe, and then, in other places too. So, if there was a party or a social gathering that had alcohol available, I was usually, would usually show up to that. If it didn't have alcohol available, that would be something that I would be uncomfortable, being. And so my use of alcohol to kind of fit in really just, started gradually escalating to abuse. And, I wasn't really able to see it at that time. Um, I think if you go back to when I had my first drink, um, you know, was that a normal experience? I don't, looking back on that, no. I mean, it's not normal for a 14-year-old to get drunk, in my opinion. And so, that's where I started. And where I ended, was, a kind of a long, painful slide. And I really looked at every possible way to make it work for me. And that's where it became extremely exhausting.
And courageous. I mean, it's amazing what you went through and how you found that inner strength after being so down and out. You carried the drinking through Stanford and through the Bills, even though you completed your playing for the Bills from an injury, not from alcohol. And at one point, you considered taking your life. And I don't think you're alone. And by the way, I have alcohol in my family too, so I understand that. Um, and it's just amazing how you actually surrendered and you got the help that you needed, which took you a while to get there. And it's just so touching and inspiring. Can you share a little bit about that?
Sure, I'll try to touch on it really briefly, and maybe we'll have to keep coming after it, but, because I might get sidetracked. It's such a journey, right? I think in my mind, at least, I had some ideas that I was in control of my drinking, even going back to high school and college. And, it was really not until I got into, well, uh, professional sports, and at that level where it became, something I realized I needed to really cope with the stress and anxiety, and again, fit in. Especially in a place like that. When I got to the NFL, there are a variety of reasons why I felt like I didn't belong. Um, which I mentioned even in high school, that had, that was showing up already. But in the NFL, it was, certainly I felt like each and every day was was a test, an evaluation of, whether or not I was able to perform. And, alcohol seemed to help at times, and at times it certainly didn't help. So the road to recovery from that, was, it took years in the making, right? Like, football was, something that I did, you know, um, with my drinking, and then I transitioned from football, or attempted that transition from football, which by itself is kind of was a challenge for me, because as I'd mentioned, I identified as a football player, and it really wasn't, uh, something that I was prepared for, when all of a sudden my football playing options were starting to shut down. And, I had to really try to figure out what it was that I was, either who I was or what I was going to become. And that question kind of haunted me for quite a few years, actually, before I started getting more comfortable in my own skin. And you know, it was in the process of, a lot of painful confrontations with friends, family, people that, cared about me. And, I spent most of my time trying to convince them that, you know, that wasn't as big a problem as maybe they were worried about. And I spent, because I was doing that and trying to convince everyone how good things were, I lost sight of how bad things really were for me. And I was lucky, you might say, or I was really blessed to have some people in my life, or placed into my life, when I needed them, and that I actually had the ability to start to hear what they were saying, um, and just allow myself to kind of move forward into, a different life that didn't involve drinking.
And
So
what do you think brought you to being able to hear them? What do you
right.
think?
Um, I really, it's a great question, and it's one that I've often wondered about what exactly it was. But I've heard people say that, I was sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Okay.
That there was kind of this point of just complete exhaustion with the path that I was on. And, at those moments, and, there's been a few since then and along the way. And each time it seems like a little bit easier for me to navigate. But back then, when I was kind of confronted with that, like, things just aren't working and I don't know what to do. Um, I knew I wanted to stop drinking. I just didn't know how. I knew, uh, for myself, all these other people had wanted me to stop drinking long, long before. And I finally got there myself. And that was, just like I said, I tried everything that I knew and thought and could think of. And I was just at that point where I needed to ask for help. And that was the most difficult thing for me to do at that stage, was ask someone else for help. And, um, you know, I wish it were as easy as just waking up one morning and saying, you know what, today I'm going to ask somebody for help. But it actually took someone to kind of meet me where I was at, and make that happen. And you know, that's a person that, continues to be important to me today. Um, and in a lot of ways, I look back and, he saved my life by being able to just see what I was going through, using his own experience and
Hmm.
understanding, and kind of, again, kind of almost make fun of me for not asking for help. So
Wow, that's a hard thing to do, to ask for
yeah,
help,
yeah,
even in the best of times, right?
yeah,
And you bring up such a couple of points of transition from football, where you had all your identity caught up in that, which makes sense since you were an athlete, as a young boy, all the way into the Bills. And um, a lot of people in our world have their identity caught up in just one spot, right? And then when that changes, they're like, the world feels like it crumbles.
yeah,
And another point that you made is this: you didn't feel like you had this sense of belonging, and I think that is like running rampant all over the place now. And I've even read that it's more important to people to belong than any of the Maslow hierarchy of needs, that people are so desperate to belong.
yeah,
And where society is right now, it's in a really tough place. And so I think hearing your message, it can relate to everybody, whether they went through drinking or they had some other issue. I think you could hear, Steve's words that could really apply to you, could really help you. Um, but that transition part too, it must have been really tough. And but you finally, through this man really helped you, and you were willing to let him help you, which took a lot and many years for you to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just amazing the road that you've been on and where you are today. You're out giving people hope. You're sharing your story. And you said you can't not share it because you want to contribute.
Right. No, I certainly, I was, like I said, I'm honored to be part of your, the insightful players and what you do and how you inspire, people to be better. That when we first met, I mean, it's been a while. I forget exactly how long, but I'm at
10,
least
12
10
years?
years. Yeah.
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 Anyway.
So, there's been transformation and change all the way through that, on a personal level. I know talking to you that you've gone through things and uh, and I certainly feel like I've grown during that time. I think there was a point in my life where I really wanted to be more active in how I shared the message. Looking, you know, hunting down opportunities, and now I'm, in a slightly different spot where I'm not trying to avoid those opportunities. I'm not maybe not seeking them out in the same way when I was where I was at then, but certainly I want, it's really, for me it's by sharing that experience that makes it valuable. If I just kind of file it away and pretend like it didn't happen or wish that it didn't happen, or just you know focus on it as something that was traumatic or problematic, I get caught up in my own self pity, and this way, by sharing it, I think that from my experience, it was the people that were willing to share their experience that saved my life.
I
and
bet.
and so that's it, on one level, the least I can do. I think that there's definitely a need. I felt called to work with former professional athletes very closely, and I was honestly a little bit frustrated because I saw the need, and I felt like the need was real and it was present, um, especially when it came to dealing with identity and substance abuse and things like that. But the frustrating part with how can I do this? How can I uh, you know do this in a great way? And I feel like that's where I was struggling, because it started coming back to me. What about me? How am I going to get paid for doing this? How am I going to survive? And really just letting go and letting God kind of steer that course has been, for me, the big difference.
Right. And your faith, I admire so many things about you in your faith, and even you've let that experience of what you've been through shape you into a wonderful man who you are today, a wonderful role model. And you've, gained wisdom, you surrendered to humility. I mean, you have a lot of wisdom, Steve. You really do.
Well, thank you.
And I think there are a lot of people out there that wish they had faith, or they want to have faith, or they used to have faith. And then, with everything going on in the world now, it's like, wait, where the heck is God, right?
Right.
Do you have anything to share about that?
I've certainly, in the course of my journey, I've probably held beliefs and had ideas of the right path. And I think where I've landed today is to let go of some of those closely held beliefs and be more open and curious, and also accepting and allowing that whatever path I choose is the right path for me, and ultimately, and that's really the understanding or even knowledge at this point for me that keeps me kind of running steady course. Is I don't have to doubt or second guess myself. Now, the challenge here is I can't really tell someone here's how to do it step by step, but um, it, it's really sometimes this might be something that you need to remind yourself of before you go to bed at night or when you get up in the morning, but just really knowing that you do have a choice, no matter how powerless you feel, that there's always a choice to be made. And, there's, choosing, what you want to ultimately happen, versus, other choices out there. And, um, I tend to hit those situations and, reflect on my experience, and just knowing that it will be okay. Right. Like if it was, not going to be okay, then, yeah, I wouldn't know what to do with that. But
And
I do have that faith.
yeah, and you trust. It sounds like you trust.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's huge, that you trust, and
Right.
and you work through some things that I think are, I learned from you about forgiveness, resentment, and judgment. And I think, I mean, just listening to you the other day talk about that, and when I've talked to you over the years, I've always admired that and wished I had
Right.
more of that. And
Right.
maybe can you share more about that? Because that's so
Sure.
powerful.
I think, just getting back to that trust and that faith, where that stems from is ultimately forgiveness. And that was a concept that I'd heard about all the way through, even as a young boy in Sunday school, or, any, of the church related, you know, fellowship that I'd been a part of. Was, forgiveness was always a key topic. And I never, it was a mystery to me, what I, I had some idea of what it meant, but I didn't ultimately, when I really got it down to here's a list of things that I need to, of people, places, and things that I need to find some forgiveness for. That's where it kind of hit this wall. Like, I didn't know how to do it. Like, was it something that I wasn't saying that needed to be said? Was it, some sort of uh, atonement or action that I needed to take to earn the forgiveness? Um, so, it started getting slightly more clear to me eventually about, um, whom I was asking for forgiveness from, and where that ultimately mattered. And I think that, it's just been a step by step process. And at the time I was going through it, I didn't see it for what it was. But looking back, I would say that, the first step, just like for me, recovery meant that I needed to stop drinking alcohol. Right
Right.
now, does not drinking automatically bring everything that I wanted into my life? No. It's really kind of that first step that opens up the doors of, what's possible. And I started seeing around me, what other people were doing. I could leverage what they had experienced, and the more I was kind of plugged into that world, and started working with people that I wanted to be like, it became easier for me to kind of, keep pushing ahead, and learning, and really getting clear on what I wanted. And what I wanted, required that I be able to forgive other people, and ultimately, find that forgiveness for myself. And it kind of, I think I'd mentioned this before, but in the Lord's Prayer, right, it says, forgive our sins as we forgive those who sin against us or trespass against us. Right. Like,
Right.
that's, um, so I was realizing that, you know, I wasn't going to find the forgiveness that I wanted from God unless I was, freely and capable of forgiving those around me, and where I felt offended.
And for those people that were exceptionally tough to forgive, did you do it for yourself? or what was your thinking there, you know?
Yeah. So, you know, some experiences in life are unique. I'm trying to find one that you know could be universal, but yeah, there are people who have done some things or were that you know from my perspective were you know hurtful, you know, no question, right? And so you know the choice to try to forgive or to even contemplate forgiving those people was really something that stemmed from allowing God to be part in work in my life, right? For me as a man, as a human, you know, I didn't want to forgive, and but then I realized that by being in that spot, I was choosing how much love and should be in the world, right? You know, those are difficult things to describe, I guess. I don't know if I'm making myself too clear, but like
You
you know,
are, you are.
just wanting all the things that I wanted for myself. You know, that peace of mind, the love, the serenity.
Mhm.
I had to be freely willing to give those things to others before I could receive them myself.
And that takes a lot of work. So it's incredible. And I'm glad that you had that support around you. That it sounds like you really soaked everything up like a sponge. And
I
they
mean
were
it.
good.
Yeah.
They were good.
These are years that have gone by, right?
Right.
That you know it just really doesn't happen overnight. But I'm grateful because I can sit today in a place where I have that experience and feel more comfortable where I'm at
Hmm.
and what I'm doing. And and again, you know, by being willing to talk about it and to share it, um, you know, that to me that just is further reinforces the idea that this is my life's purpose and that you know all these things, whether I thought they were good or thought they were bad or the worst thing that could ever happen, they were really gifts that God had given me. And uh, and to me it's a daily choice of what to do with those gifts.
I mean, yeah, I mean, and just talking to you about judgment too. That's another one.
Right.
And that's something I have to work really hard on, especially with our culture and the craziness and the white supremacists and all this violence. I mean, how do you get beyond that? I mean, that is like, it's like, takes my breath away. It's just,
Right. I think, you know, I'd heard it, you know, I was told that it's okay to judge, just don't condemn somebody.
that's a good distinction.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good distinction.
So I remind myself of that a lot because I do find myself in judgment. I mean, that
Mhm,
doesn't go away, I don't think, but it gets
mhm.
easier. Just like I had mentioned, those kind of decision points where I have to decide, do I want to end it right now, or do I want to keep going and you know write a chapter that's even more amazing later on? You know, like kind of finding the strength and the desire to you know keep moving ahead. Um, so those all those things continue to happen throughout life. But just having the words, having the ideas of what to do, and that experience is really you know the golden part for me right now. And I hope you know that if people are out there finding themselves in a situation where they're thinking about this is the worst thing that could ever happen, or I don't know how I can go on, that those are opportunities to ask God for help. I mean, that God is always the right place to start, and
Right.
He puts people in your life that will help.
And it was transformational for you, put you on
Yeah,
purpose. And it,
yeah.
and it can be transformational for all of you as well. Um, but if you take a class, I mean, teach a class, I'll take it.
Okay.
Especially with
maybe
the
maybe we can do something someday.
that'd be fun. That would be fun. Um, it's really quite incredible how you've taken, a crisis and turned it into, living this amazing life where you're a wonderful dad, and you work really hard and you care so much about others, and you're just a great role model in our world, you know. And I hope Steve's story can give you hope, because Steve has a lot of courage, and you can access that too, right?
All
So,
right.
any parting words that you'd like to share?
Well, I mean, you mentioned, being a dad is something that I'm probably most happy with and proud of today, and satisfied. I find a lot of satisfaction and purpose in that. I'm okay with not having been the best at all these other things that I wanted to be good at. But, you know, I know, for example, because of, two divorces, that, I wasn't the best husband. Right. And, I can see in that how I want to be better. And that's what inspires me today is really that, how can I be better in knowing that that's what I want. But, being a parent, being a dad, that's certainly what's right on my plate today. And there's always ways to be better. And so that's,
Amazing.
yeah,
Amazing. And that's a great question for all of us to ask. How can we be better, right? Especially when we fall down, we have something that in
exactly.
our life
Yeah,
that feels like tragedy. Because there's always, as you said, a gift in that and a blessing.
right. Each time you fall down, that's the opportunity to get up and be better, right? Like just getting up after you fall down makes you better.
It does. And I think your gifts and your strengths come back stronger. What do you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I know that to be true, from
right,
my experience. I have yet to find anyone or hear from anyone where that's not true.
right, definitely.
So,
Well, we'll have to have you on again. You have always inspired me and touched my heart deeply. And as they say here in New England, in Belichick we believe, but in Steve I believe. For
well,
sure, for sure.
well, thank you, Chrissy. Yeah, it went by so quick. I'd love to do it again sometime.
Okay, good. We'll have you on real soon, and we'll have to stay in closer touch again, for sure.
That sounds good.
So I want to thank you all for watching or listening, depending upon which platform you're on, and come back again. And we would love for you to tell us who you'd like to see and what topics you want. Because with the world the way it is, it can be really tough and discouraging and certainly overwhelming. And there's a lot of violence out there, and anger and hate. But love is stronger than hate. So please join in on our bold movement of hope to put more love into the world. So thank you. Bye-bye.
All right.
The entire Insightful Player podcast initiative is dedicated to the late Tom Constantino. Tom Constantino was my PR consultant. He was over the moon fabulous. He was really an exceptional human being. And Insightful Player wouldn't have made it to where it is now if it wasn't for Tom. So Tom, up there in heaven, I just want you to know you're going to live in my heart forever. And I am forever grateful for you. Thank you.